What is up, listeners of the Didn't Ask podcast? Welcome back to a new episode of the Didn't Ask podcast. Welcome. If this is your first time, welcome back. If this is your 41st podcast that you're listening to, man, we're getting closer to the big 5-0. I am very excited about that. How's everybody's week been? I hope your week was great. I went to see Spider Man last Thursday, and man, what a fun movie that is. It's a movie that's just, man, it hits on every level, every emotional beat is there. You're gonna be crying, you're gonna be laughing, you're gonna be rolling over the floor. I don't fucking know. You're gonna be scared at moments. That movie is absolutely fantastic, and you should go see it if you can, because here in the Netherlands we can't anymore. I'm very happy that I went Thursday. I took a day off of work so I could see the movie in theaters, because a couple days later the government was like, you know what? Fuck you. We don't care anymore. We're going to go into full lockdown. So yeah, we are now living in lockdown days once again. Most stores are closed. Only the supermarkets and stuff like that are open. Drugstores and stuff like that. And man, it sucks. Especially so close to Christmas. It's just terrible. But hey, we gotta roll with the punches. You know what I'm saying? I think that is going to be it for the introduction of this episode 41 podcast of the Didn't Ask podcast. Let's jump into the first question coming from the Ask Reddit subreddit, as always. Coming from user creative underscore waltz underscore 9462. And they ask, what are you sick of being romanticized or being portrayed positively? One thing that I always think is very weird that it's getting basically romanticized is murderers. Like, Netflix has found a market where people really love murder mysteries and stuff like that. And I understand murder mysteries like unsolved murders and stuff like that. That I think those are interesting, and things that haven't been solved. I think those are somewhat interesting, and they could also help, of course, with coming to a conclusion of the search, or you name it. But for some sort of reason, Netflix also does shows like Making a Murderer, and they did the Ted Bundy movie, and a couple of other things where it's known who the killer is, but somehow we're making the person even bigger than they already were. And speaking for that Ted Bundy movie, you have Ted Bundy being played by Zac Efron, one of the hottest guys in Hollywood. And like, what? The guy you're portraying is a murderer, and I don't blame Zac Efron for taking the role, but like the fact that you made a movie about a guy that is a convicted murderer, a liar, and whatever the fuck, like, what the fuck is wrong with Netflix at that point? Like, Netflix has done some cool stuff, but they also done some outrageous stuff, and I feel like this is part of that outrageous part, because again, it's romanticizing Ted Bundy. It's making it seem like, oh, the guy was a hot dude, he blah 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 took care of these women, yada yada yada. But at the end of the day, he still is a murderer. So I don't think that a murderer deserves a movie in the way it's being portrayed. Like a hot guy playing him, and somehow people fall in love with Ted Bundy even more. Like, what? It's weird. So yeah, going back to the question asked by user creative underscore waltz underscore 9462, and they ask, what are you sick of being romanticized or portrayed positively? And I think murderers is pretty high on the list for me. Why do these people deserve whole movies, like feature movies being made about them? Like, a documentary, I can understand to an extent, because that's more informative, but a Ted Bundy Netflix movie is just made for pure entertainment, especially when it stars Zac Efron. So yeah, that would be the answer to your question. Creative underscore waltz. Thank you for your question. Moving on to the second question of today. This one coming from user Bino WWW. And they ask, a complete stranger offers you $1 million if you can recommend them 3 movies they haven't seen before and they end up rating at least one of them 5 out of 10. What movies will you recommend? It's really hard to recommend 3 movies that people haven't seen. So I'm gonna be thinking in going back into the mind palace and see like what movies have I seen and aren't that popular. You know what I'm saying? So that way that person might have that, so like I have a better chance of, guessing the movies, or like providing movies that they haven't seen. And a complete stranger, I would recommend. Ooh, that's a hard ass question. I would recommend Room, the Brie Larson movie, and I know that it is a Academy winning, movie, and I believe Brie Larson won an Academy Award for that. But I still think that it is a movie that not many people have seen. So I would say that for one. And then I am thinking because it's really hard to determine what movie people should watch, right? Because I especially knowing that you have to recommend them a movie they haven't seen, I would recommend Promising Young Woman, the movie that came out earlier this year. It's really good, and I don't think many people have seen that movie either. And then to close out, I'm gonna be honest, I'm looking through my watched movies that I've seen in the past year to see like, oh, what would I rate a movie, or what movie I would recommend. I think I'm gonna go with this one. I'm gonna recommend Wind River as well. Because Wind River is one of those movies that I heard of thanks to a podcast, and before that I hadn't heard of it, even though it stars Jeremy Renner and Elizabeth Olsen. So they're pretty big stars, but I feel like, yeah, it's a pretty small movie and not many people have seen it. And I really like the movie. So those are gonna be my 3 recommendations for you, Abino WWW. A complete stranger offers you $1 million if you can recommend them 3 movies they haven't seen before and they end up rating at least one of them 5 out of 5. What movies will you recommend? And for me, it would be Room, starring Brie Larson, Promising Young Woman, that came out this year, and then Wind River, starring Jeremy Renner and Elizabeth Olsen, because those 3 movies were fantastic to me, and I had not seen them. I mean, of course, but like I had heard people talk about them but not seen them, and I feel like those movies are pretty much like art house things where, people have heard of them but not seen them and stuff like that. So yeah, those 3 would be my recommendations to you, Albino WWW. Thank you for your question. Moving on to the third question of today, and this one coming from user Diondrian. If a radio message from outer space requested, be quiet, they'll hear you, turn off all electronics, how would Earth react? I think there would be blind panic. And this is the funny thing that you can always talk about, really, when it comes to alien life or extraterrestrial life. And that is like people will fucking be panicking, because especially the religious people, because most religious people think that we are special because God made us, yada yada yada. But if there is extraterrestrial life, that would throw all that stuff out the window like very quickly. So I would say that there would be blind panic if a message from outer space came back saying, "Be quiet, they'll hear you. Turn off all electronics." And honestly, you would think that people will turn off all electronics, but that's not gonna happen. Especially nowadays that, people have phones, people have tablets, people have, power banks and whatever the fuck to charge all these devices again. And, people are not gonna stop using their phones. So I think people will keep using the electronics, but I think there will be some slight panic when a message comes from outer space. Any message. It doesn't really matter what it is, but especially if it's like a threat as this, yeah, there will be blind panic. So going back to your question asked by user D1drian, and they ask if a radio message from outer space requested be quiet, they'll hear you, turn off all electronics, how would Earth react? And again, there's gonna be fucking panic because, of course, we have not found life forms in outer space so far, and them then contacting us with a warning, that is gonna cause some panic, especially under the religious people under us that have been saying that we are special because God made us, and then clearly we are not. And there are some people, or there are some like beings that are way more intelligent than we are because apparently they are hunting us. So yeah, thank you for your questions, D1 Deern. Moving on to the fourth question of today, coming from user TMS88, and they ask which movie slash TV series character is perfectly casted. I've been watching The Witcher, and Henry Cavill just shines in that role. Like, he was really good as Superman, but he never really got to act like 100% himself, in my opinion. And in Witcher, he gets to be, who he wants to be. Because if you know Henry Cavill, you know that Henry Cavill has been a fucking huge nerd for many a years. And he has been, touting every gaming adaptation that he wants to be in it. I mean, Witcher for one, even though that's not really a gaming thing, but it is gaming adjacent because the movie, or the movies and series are based on the books, similar to the games are based on the books. But again, I played the game and I've read the first book, but like played the game, and I'm very interested in the TV show because many things are familiar with me. So yeah, that's one of the things that he has been touting a lot, that he just wants to be in gaming adaptations. Mass Effect is another one. I saw a recent news post saying that he wants to be in a Red Dead movie. So there are so many things that he wants to be in, and I feel like The Witcher is such a fun character for him because it's a very stoic character, shows very little emotion, and I feel like that is a fun thing for him to play. And of course, it's nerdy, so he fucking dives into that role more than he can. And I'm looking through the comments of this message, and the user living store 2722 says Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin. And I would agree, but only after seeing Spider Man No Way Home. Willem Dafoe was good in the original Spider Man trilogy, but he never really got to be the multiple personality disorder Osborn that he is in Spider-Man No Way Home. I'm really trying hard to get these words out of my mouth, but somehow it's really hard for me today. But yeah, so in the original trilogy, he was good, but again, there he didn't explore the full range of the character that he had to his abilities, right? In Spider-Man No Way Home, he has honed that character so much that it's fucking scary seeing him play the Green Goblin once again, because he is now exploring the full range and he's flipping from one personality to the other. He's going back from being Osborne to Goblin to Osborne to Goblin, and it's so good. And his mannerisms change as well, and the look in his eyes change, and it's so good. So I would say that yeah, Living Store 2722, Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin is a very good pick. But again, to me, that would only count after watching Spider Man No Way Home, because in the first three movies, I feel like, he didn't use all the character he could. So going back to the question asked by user TMS88, which movie slash series character is perfectly casted? My answer to that question would be Henry Cavill as Geralt of Rivia, because man, he is enjoying that role, and you can see that in his face. It's so awesome to see him happy, and even though Geralt doesn't show that many emotions, you can see that Henry Cavill is really enjoying himself. And then going to the answer given by Living Dash Store 2722, Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin, and I have to agree. But then again, after seeing Spider Man No Way Home, because he's so fucking good in that movie. So please go check out that movie if you haven't done that yet. Now, moving on to the final question from the Ask Reddit subreddit, coming from user goodluck underscore Canuck. And they ask, what is the most fun you've had as a kid that did not involve a screen of any kind? I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast before, and if I did, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to repeat it. If not, good, because now you're gonna hear the story. Like many a years ago, I don't know, I think I might have been 8 turning 9, maybe 9 turning 10. I am not very sure about that. But anyway, I went with my family to Disneyland Paris on my birthday. And man, I have had so much fun. Never had so much fun in my life. Just celebrating at Disney, like Disney itself is such a magical time, and I'm saving up money to go in the near future again, because I miss Disney, and Disneyland is such a special place, because again, you start from a very young age being indoctrinated by Disney, especially nowadays when they own Star Wars and Marvel, and then all the Disney, properties and Fox and everything that comes with that. So you're being basically indoctrinated as a small child to really like Disney. But then again, Disney is such a cool thing, and there are so many bright colors and songs and smells, and everything is so much fun that when I got to celebrate my birthday there, it was just so awesome to run around the park. And I bought a hat, a giant Stitch top hat, as my birthday hat. And then at the in the evening, we went to eat at the Disney at the Mickey Cafe, I think it's called. And my family arranged that I got a cake, and all the Disney figures came up to me to wish me a happy birthday and stuff like that. And everybody started singing, and man, I really am still looking back at that time, just mind boggled knowing that it was such a fun time to be there. And again, it's already such a fun time to be at Disney and to go to Disney and explore the parks and see all the Disney figures there. But celebrating your birthday over there just makes the experience 10 times better. Especially when take pictures with fucking Goofy and Minnie Mouse and Pluto and Stitch and you name it. They were all there celebrating my birthday. And as a small child, or as a child, I wasn't that small at the time, but as a kid, that's what you dream of, right? It's what you want in life. So thank you, good luck underscore Canuck for your question. What is the most fun you've had as a kid that did not involve a screen of any kind? And it was for me celebrating my birthday at Disneyland Paris, because can your birthday be any more magical? Like, I don't think so. I don't think so. And now, We move on to the final question of today. This one coming from the Am I the Asshole subreddit, asked by user Melind Throwaway, and they ask, Am I the asshole for buying a door for my son behind my husband's back? For those who might have been confused, my 35 female husband, 46 male, believes that until he is 18, our son, 14 years old, shouldn't conceal his room as he is under our care. This has been one of the things straining our relationship lately, as I think that a teen should have some freedom, maybe not completely out of sight, but a door at least. But my husband keeps insisting on him having almost no freedom at all. Whenever I bring up the door thing, he just shuts me down with, This is what it will take for him to be a man. And this is how I was raised. So, both my son's birthday and Christmas are coming up, and I decided that he should finally have a door to his room. So, I went behind my husband's back and bought a new door and hurried it to be installed while they were both away. When my son came back from school, he was incredibly delighted, but my husband didn't receive the news so well. He told me that this is not the kind of decision I should be making by myself and that I disrespected his authority, and now he is refusing to even sleep in the same bed as me. I've been wondering if this should have been a conversation rather than me disrespecting his wishes. So, am I the asshole for going behind my husband's back to get a door for my kid? Simple answer to your question, no. I can, on one side, kind of see where the husband is getting from, like, oh, this is, he's living under our roof, yada, yada, yada. But I personally don't really see how having a door or not, would change anything of that fact, because if your kid wants to fucking shoot heroin, he's probably not gonna do it in his room. He's probably gonna go somewhere else. If he wants to, I don't know, suck off a dude, he's not gonna do it in his room. Like, there are so many ways you can circumvent that room. So, just giving a kid a little bit more privacy by having a door installed, I feel like that's just fine. Like, to me, it's fucking weird that this guy is so insistent on not having a door. Like, what in your right mind makes it okay for you to not include a door? Like, I'm so confused by the question here, or like by the situation here, I should say, because a door is just privacy, and it's also just nice for a parent, I'm guessing, that you can close that door so that your kid can be in his room and you don't have to bother with the kid and you don't have to have fucking noises of people getting slaughtered in Call of Duty or whatever. Like, what the fuck is going on? And like many people in the comments point out, it sounds like this husband is very controlling and should be getting some help for that. Because, first off, he isn't allowing the door. Because this is what it'll make him a man, and this is how I was raised, as the husband says. But then he gets mad that the woman disrespected his authority. Like, dude, calm the fuck down. It's a fucking door. Maybe have a conversation and then be like, okay, it's fine. He has a door now. Let's move on. But the fact that he doesn't want to sleep in the same bed anymore just shows that this guy, your husband, isn't a man at all. Because he doesn't want to talk about it. He shies away from confrontations, seemingly, and is a little bitch when somebody goes behind his back to do something. Like, this guy is not a man, and you might want to get some therapy for him, or maybe even, consider splitting up, because this guy seems like a fucking creep. And I hope that he isn't abusive to you more than he already is, because that would be a very scary situation. So, going back to the question asked by user Melin Throwaway, and they ask, Am I the asshole for buying a door to my son behind my husband's back? And I would say, Oh, of course not. children need to have their privacy too, especially when you're hitting, your puberty and he wants to explore his body or whatever the fuck he wants to do. Give the kid a door so he can close it and can have a fucking wank or whatever the fuck at night. It, we have all been small, we have all been kids, we have all gone through puberty, and you want some privacy now and again. And I feel like you don't have to wait till you're 18. And again, if you're really thinking that a door is going to stop your kid from doing anything out- outrageous, then you're fucking stupid because, again, the door, the room is not the end all be all place for this kid. He can fucking smoke weed in the school cafeteria for all I care, but you're never going to find out unless somebody says something about you. So the door is not going to be the changing factor in this situation. So once again, thank you, Melon Throwaway, for your question. And this has been it for the Didn't Ask podcast for this week, episode 41 at that. If you want to listen to this podcast, you can visit anchor.fm/didn't-ask-pod. Here you can find all the links to all your favorite podcast services where this podcast can be found. If you go to that website, you will also see a box that says message, and if you click on that button, you will be able to enter a message for me. You'll be able to record a message for me that I can then play during this show so you can hear your voice on the show and I can answer your question. If you don't want your voice to be heard, I can completely understand that. Just say that up front, then I will just read your question out myself and still answer your question because that's why you're here. I will be back next week, and in the meantime, keep up with what I am watching thanks to tracked.tv. That link will be in the show description, very much similar to all the other links. You will also find a link to this YouTube channel that I have where you can watch this podcast, and watch is in between brackets because it's not really watching because it's a static like moving screen, but maybe in the future we can add a video component. Well, that's gonna be all for me for this week. I hope to see you back next week. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.